Hello guys, welcome back to our chess game at Lichess.park. This is Darchayate. So I'll be playing today as white, and I'll be showing to you today a new interesting game. This is a Queen's Gambit decline, and this is a variation of the Albin Counter-Gambit. So this is a pretty interesting chess opening for the Queen's Gambit. So it starts with, so here I played with white. I played with d4. There's a queen pawns game, and my enemy goes for the d4, d5, and I played the c4, and this is now on the territory of the queen's gambit. Then he can accept via taking the pawn, and that will be queen's gambit accepted. And he can push the e6 pawn, and this that will be called the queen's gambit decline. But here he played a different a different variation of queen's gambit, and that's it by playing e5, and that's what they call Queen's Gambit decline, Albine counter gambit. I'm not sure if Albine or Albin. Sorry if I pronounce it wrong, but here we go. So the game continues. I take the pawn with the e5 pawn because I was thinking if this is the game will continue like this, and maybe an exchange of queen is advantage to white as he is now unable to castle. So that will be an advantage for white. If not, if I'll take this pawn, and he could have several options like pushing this pawn, as what he did. He pushed that pawn. So the idea of pushing this pawn is just to take away the c3 square, so I cannot jump this knight on c3 because there's a pawn waiting. So the next move for here is just normal development for white. So I choose knight f3, threatening this pawn. And what he did is just defended the pawn via this pawn, via this knight at c6. So that is knight c6. And here I could play knight knight b d2, or another. I mean that's the engine suggestion, the knight move. But here I played g3. I'm planning to fianchetto my bishop because the 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 reason why I want to fianchetto, because if my bishop is here, it will be too strong on this diagonal. So that was my plan earlier on. In here, he replied with bishop e6. He is preparing also to capture this pawn at c4, but it's okay. I can give that pawn. Who cares? But here I played knight b d2, just defending. At the same time, developing my knight at d2. But again, it blocks the bishop of moving the bishop from this diagonal, from this. So I'm quite hesitant on that one, but it's okay. Here he played queen d7. So I was thinking that he will be castling on the king side and the queen side, but I already noticed that this will be a double edged position. He will castle queen side and I will castle king side. But again, it gives me 1.3 advantage because he had sacrificed a pawn earlier, right? So now my move was to make also my king safety by moving the bishop on g2 and preparing to castle kingside. So what he did here, he just castled, and then that's castling queenside, the long castle, and I castle. On the king side, that's a short castle, and here this is quite very fierce game because it's double edged position, an explosive position in where both queens can attack both sides of the board. So that's pretty wild game. So here he played bishop h3, and then actually the engine suggested that I should push this pawn here, but he will just take this pawn and nothing happens. He just took the pawn and nothing happens. But here I take the bishop with my bishop, and I think the engine doesn't like that move, and I took it with his queen. As you can see, guys, this is a fianchetto. It's called the Albin Counter-Gambit fianchetto variation. So the fianchetto is the bishop on g2 on the white side. So here, I think what I did here is also to attack on his king on the queen side. Yeah, pretty crazy, right? So he will attack my king on the king side, while I'm gonna attack his king on the queen side. So this is what they call the double edge position in chess. This is usually on Sicilian. If the Sicilian, the other side castle and the other side castle, and both attacks each castle, the queen side and the king side. So that's a Sicilian variation, the double edge position. But now there's a new stuff. This is the Albin Counter-Gambit fianchetto version. Here he continues by playing. I think he played here. He could push the pawn here on a4, not a4 but h5. The reason why he pushed this pawn is to attack the king side here, and I can jump here, and he could go back, and I can jump here, and he can push the pawn, and this is totally crazy game. As you can see, the engine evaluation is positive point 0.2. It's too very minimal. So here I can push here the pawn, and actually the engine favors black now. As you can see, if you play a6 here, and I can take this pawn and flank the h4, you can sacrifice a whole rook here. Wow, this is a pretty crazy game. You can take the pawn, you can knight jump, and sidestep. You can push the pawn, you can take it. Wow, this game is pretty wild. So black is on the verge of attacking the white king. This is good for black, I think. It's pretty good. You have very good attacking chances. The bishop can go here. On the d6, for example, here. The knight can go here. The bishop can go here. And can attack this poor h2 square. If that was his choice earlier, the h5, but he didn't. So instead of playing h5, instead of playing h5, what he did, he played knight h6, which is a pretty passive move for me. And also the engine doesn't like this move because it gave me 1.5 advantage, and it's too slow. Even though you have developed this piece, it doesn't give you anything. The h while the h4, the h5 mean is pretty straightforward. Just straight away punch the enemy at the head, right? So that's quite that's quite realistic and straightforward approach. But now you go for this one, the long one. And I go now for my attack on the queen side, which is by pushing this pawn at b4. And now he wants to attack me via this knight. But he cannot touch this pawn because it's guarded by this knight. This h2 is guarded by this f3 knight, so it's okay. But it's quite scary, right? But again, he played here b5. I played the b5. He took the pawn. Just this is a sacrifice knight. If I took this and this mate in one, so it's that quite dummy if I'm gonna take that knight. But here I took the pawn on a7, and I'm planning to attack on the queen side slowly. So this is very quite crazy game. Here he pushed the pawn on d3. The reason why he wants to push this pawn is just to open up the center and make room for his rook to have the open file. But I just ignore it. I just go for my attack on the queen side by checking, and then he runs, the king runs. So I'm now on the pretty advantage because I'm able to attack first on the queen side, right? So he is now late for the party. So he's still in preparation for the attack while I'm currently attacking his king right now on the king side. So that's the good thing about this one. And here he took the pawn on e2 by the d pawn. But again, I think I played here. I just played my rook sidestep on e1. Then after that, he go for bishop b4, attacking the knight. So he is also making attacking my defender on the h2 pawn by creating some chaos on the center. But here I just took I just took this because it's a check. I took the knight on e5 because it will be a check. Then he is forced to take the knight or maybe run away with his king. But what he did here, he just took the knight with his with a knight on g4. So that's knight takes e5. Here I push the pawn on b6. And here he can defended this by this one. And I can still push pawn here. And this this could be crazy game, and this is totally over for black. I can go here. I can go queen to queen, exchange queen. But again, there's pretty advantage for white. It's plus 7.2. And let's go back to the instead what he did when I played b6, he played bishop takes d2, and now I can have a threat on promoting my pawn to become a queen, but he have to move. He have to move somewhere, maybe his rook or king, just to avoid take just to avoid taking the rook on the d8. So what he did, I think he go for rook c8, and here this is totally over by making the check here, because this knight will be hanging. For example, he go here. I'll take this knight with a check, and he can cover based on the engine. I can check here. He can go there. I can take this bishop, and it's this totally over. And as you can see, I'm a piece ahead, and I've got a lot of pawns here, and this pawn is hanging, so everything is crumbling for black. And I think that's the game for today. The game called Queen's Gambit Decline Albin Counter Gambit. And thank you guys for watching, and have a good one, guys. Thank you, and bye bye.